fans has been saying, WWE need to go back to the Attitude Era. And let me tell you guys why WWE would not go back to the Attitude Era. Let me explain this to you guys out there. Why they won't go back. Ever since WWE went to PG, WWE has lost most of the Attitude Era fans. Like, they all done disappeared. Some of them still watch the WWE, but they lost like half of those fans. Like, most of those fans probably went to TNA. Well, probably started watching TNA, probably, or started watching UFC. WWE has lost those fans, and I don't think they'll never get them back. And even if they did decide to go back, I don't think they'll gain those fans back. But here's why WWE, in my opinion, won't go back. And I don't think WWE is afraid to go back to the Attitude Era. They can't go back. I mean, think about it for a minute, man. Stone Cold Steve Austin was their guy. He was the guy that took the WWE to the next level. But think about this for a minute, though. And even though I want to see the Attitude Era come back, it would be a lot of complaining out there. A lot of people would be bitching and complaining. You're already hearing some of the Walking Dead fans out there bitching about how brutal The Walking Dead is. I mean, you got fans out there having fucking nightmares and talking about it was too much. It was too brutal. I mean, if you got fans like that bitching about how brutal The Walking Dead was, what makes you think those kind of people ain't going to say the same about the Attitude Era? They'll sit there and bitch and complain about if Stone Cold Steve Austin came out every week giving his middle finger to the fans, even though that's part of his character. Fans would flip the fuck out. There's people out there in that crowd that will flip the fuck out and saying that I can't believe he sat there and get a middle finger to my son. Well, Austin just really just raising his hand up in the air. And then you're going to have parents complaining and saying that, oh, my son is giving my daughter the finger, and they think it's cool because they see Stone Cold Steve Austin giving the middle finger. My son or daughter, they're getting in trouble in school because they flip the teachers off and all that stuff like that because they saw Austin do it and they thought it was cool. You would hear a bunch of people bitching and complaining about shit like that about Austin. If Stone Cold Steve Austin were to beat the shit out of Booker T inside of a grocery store, they would call that shit racist. They would call it racist. Even though Booker T agreed for Stone Cold Steve Austin to kick his ass in the grocery store, you're going to have fans out there bitching and complaining, calling that racism. And the sad thing is, that is how soft everybody has gotten in America. That is how soft. And it's the truth. If The Undertaker came out every week with his ministry, you guys remember the Ministry of Darkness. I don't know if some of you guys know who the Ministry of Darkness is, but The Undertaker used to run with the Ministry of Darkness. If The Undertaker came out every week with his Ministry of Darkness sacrificing people, you guys remember when The Undertaker put Stone Cold Steve Austin on that cross, and he's saying that Austin has been sacrificed. Now, if Undertaker would have done it in this era with his ministry, Christians out there would be bugging out. Christians would think that's a mockery. They would think that WWE is making fun of God because God, that there's pictures of God hanging on the cross, and you would have Christians out there, or Muslims, or Jewish out there, or other religions out there, bitching and whining about seeing somebody being sacrificed in the WWE by The Undertaker. Christians would mark out. They would call that a mockery of God. They would. So it's too much complaining out there, though. And I really don't blame the WWE for avoiding that kind of stuff, avoiding that kind of headache, because why would you want to put yourself in a position where you got a bunch of people out there in the media? You got Facebook, Twitter, you got a bunch of people on there that's going to be on Twitter complaining and saying, oh, WWE is foul. And here's another thing that fans would bitch about. If Stone Cold Steve Austin would have gave, because if Stone Cold Steve Austin gave Stephanie McMahon a stunner, people would call that a woman abuser. Now, I know Stone Cold Steve Austin has a history of his ex-wife, Deborah, though, and, from what they said Austin slapped her and everything like that, though. I don't know if that's true or not, though, but Austin does have a history of really is hitting a woman from what he said. But Imagine if Stone Cold Steve Austin would have gave Stephanie McMahon a Stone Cold Stunner. Fans would people out there would be tripping. They would be calling Austin a woman hitter and saying that's fucked up. How you gonna give a woman a stunner and everything like that? You know, all that types of stuff. If Stone Cold would have poured beer on Stephanie McMahon, even though Stephanie McMahon agreed for Austin to do that, fans would bug the fuck out and call that a woman abuser. You know what I'm saying? Not just Austin, but that goes for anybody. You know, if Undertaker would have gave Trish Stratus a tombstone power driver, people would bug the fuck out. They would be tripping over that shit. They were saying that's messed up. How can you do a woman like that? WWE should be in jail for abusing women like that. They would call WWE women's abusers. And even though these women's agree for these men wrestlers to put them in their finisher, that just wrestling fans out there that would be tripping about the whole thing. And that is how sad that is how sad and how soft that people has gotten. It's really sad. You know, America is supposed to be the home of the brave, not the home of the pussies. And that's how soft everybody's gotten now, man. So, yeah, WWE could go back to the Attitude Era, but they would be dealing with a lot of headaches. And you know what? They smart for not doing that. They are. They're smart for not doing that, man. You know, here's another thing. Here's another reason why they can't go back to the Attitude Era. Because I know 2 or 3 years ago, Alberto Del Rio, from what I heard 2 or 3 years ago, ripped a kid's sign. Now, Alberto Del Rio is a heel. Now, from what I heard, Alberto Del Rio took some kid's sign and he ripped it. And that's what heels do. Heels are supposed to rip up, fan signs. But the kid's mother took it personal. She's talking about saying, oh, my son, he cried. He had nightmares because Alberto Del Rio ripped his sign. And I'm like, bitch, please. That's just part of the man's character. You know, that is how soft everybody has gotten in America, man. People take, even when wrestlers are heels, and even though it's part of their characters, people would take them serious and bug the fuck out over that type of shit. See, back in the Attitude Era, you can have a heel go out there and rip a kid's sign. The kid would smile at him. And the parents would smile at him. They'll smile at them and saying like, hey, that's cool. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to sit there and take them serious. You know, kids back in the Attitude Era, man, at least they had some balls back then. At least they didn't fucking cry and didn't have fucking nightmares like what some of these kids have in this day and age. Because you got kids in this day and age that can't even take a wrestler ripping a sign up and shit. You got a kid sitting there crying, and then the mother and parents get upset about it and taking it very personal and probably want to sue the WWE for child abuse. Like, come on, man. Get the fuck out of here, man. They're just wrestlers and just part of their characters. You know? That is how bad and soft that people has gotten in this day and age. I'm not saying that people should be violent. I'm not saying that, though. But see, my generation is the last generation that have enough balls that can take things. We can take a lot of stuff. We know stuff is just for act. We know they just being characters. But in this generation, no. People in this generation take things way too fucking serious. Way too damn serious, man. It's just ridiculous. It really is. But anyway, that's just my opinion about it, though, on why the Attitude Era will never come back. And it isn't going to come back, man. Because you got too many crybaby and whiners out there, man. And they're the reason why the Attitude Era will never come back.